Costanoa is beginning to become space constrained with the current set of tiles that we have. So the goal in this episode is going to be to buy at least this one tile and start expanding the city outward across this highway right here. And this space will likely be used for some farming. And then over in this area, I want to fill it out with a small industrial park to address some of the industrial demand. And then the last thing that I want to do is take care of some of these empty spaces if I can. They won't all be taken care of just because I want some commercial to be in those spaces too, and there's no demand for that yet. But the goal is to just start adding maybe just a little bit more higher density residential uses. The other thing I want to do is just formalize this area as the city of Costanoa with a district. So before I get started with all that, I did want to say that there's two things I did off camera. The first is that I added the French region pack to the game, and that did unlock some signature buildings. So we have this one here, as well as these two buildings here. I won't be placing any of those, but they are available now. The reason that I added this in is actually because I want to make use of some of the French low rent housing, just because those buildings I think look a little bit more natural and their footprint is a little bit better for this size of a city, I think. The other thing that I did off camera was actually simulated for quite a while. I think I started at about $4,000 and now we are up to $74,000. The reason for that is just that this tile here I think costs about $40,000, and then adding roads and stuff will cost some money. And I didn't want to run into those issues just yet. So hopefully throughout the course of this episode, we will be able to maintain at least some sort of bank balance, and then also keeping our budget in the green. So the first thing I'll do is I will go ahead and purchase this tile. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this fairly long street here and actually connect it into the highway here. The reason for that is that this city services campus is actually right on that corridor. So that'll allow them to have very easy access to this highway here. The other reason is that since I'm building over here, I want to have extra connectivity. And I'll also probably be adding in some roundabouts at those junctions just to alleviate some of the traffic that might result with the city's expansion. So I'll go ahead and start with that. So a few things cropped up when I was doing that. First is that I extended this road here, which right now is called Amity Street, and it broke some of the zoning here. So I'll go in and address that. And then also this street over here, Sunset Street, needs to change just a little bit. And actually specifically this farm right here needs to be made a little bit smaller just to accommodate a medium roundabout right there. So I'll take care of those things right now. So all it took there was just getting rid of the zoning that was fronting this Willow Street right here. And then that reoriented the zoning. Unfortunately, we did lose the buildings. I wasn't quick enough, but it's spawning in the same size of building, so that is somewhat okay. So I've taken care of both of those roundabouts right here and the connection of these streets here. What I want to focus on next is the roadway layout in this area. And the first thing I want to consider when I'm thinking about that is if we take a look at our fertile land, which this whole area is fertile, I basically want to have a few farms here. I want to get a gauge about how many we're going to be able to get. And it looks like probably one there, one down in this corner, and then one in this corner here. So what I want to accommodate for is those 3 farms, basically. And what I'm thinking about here as I've extended this cozy street out is that I want to continue with this similar grid size, and I won't necessarily have the entire grid over here, but I do want to have like this Umber Street, the distance between this street and then the next street should be the same as what exists now. So I'm going to go ahead, and the first thing I'll do is actually put some of these alleys in, and that'll tell me how long those streets are. And then I will try to measure out the right distance to get, I think, probably up 2 additional blocks and then go over. So what I've done is I have extended this cozy street out right here, and I'm actually going to just double check that everything should be straight here. I think that it is. So cozy street got extended out. So with those streets extended out, I can now place 1 farm in this area, 1 farm in this area, and then a 3rd farm right here. And before I place these farms, I want to make sure that I am going to be placing the right farm for what the city needs right now. So if I go ahead and take a look at the services, or rather if I take a look at the production, I can see that we are at a deficit for wheat and then also a deficit for vegetables, but we are at a greater deficit for wheat. So I'll probably place 2 of those and then 1 vegetable farm. And if there's any space left over, I may consider placing a livestock farm, but those don't actually need fertile land, so I try not to put those on fertile land just since it's somewhat wasteful. But for sure, 2 wheat farms and then 1 vegetable farm, and the wheat farms I will target to be the larger 2 plots. So there are those 3 farms placed down, and it looks like everything's still functioning fine. So that's good. We're still getting water and power, and still producing enough water and power. And actually, let's double check on the power production front. Yeah, we still are, and I think with our monthly budget, there may be room to actually expand on that a little bit. So yeah, that should allow us a little bit extra overhead. And I'll go actually all the way up to 90 because we'll be putting that industrial zone in. And then for water, we are actually way underproducing. So I may want to consider, there is this underground water source right here. It may be worth actually reconsidering this farm a little bit and making use of that. Because right now all I have is this 1 small water tower right here. There's also the French water tower, which is looks pretty nice, but is, I guess, fairly expensive. So it also comes with sewage treatment with an upgrade. So that's maybe something to consider down the line as well. The next area I want to focus on is right in here. And there's 2 things I want to do. One I mentioned already, which is actually just to expand a little industrial area right here. The other thing I want to look at is making our garbage facility a little bit larger, because I know we have been at the edge of that for a long time. Yeah, we already actually are at 640 tons out of 640. So I'm gonna have to expand that a little bit. The other thing is I'll probably purchase this tile at some point. And I may just do that up front right here. And I think it should be pretty inexpensive because it is like, yeah, both these tiles are very inexpensive because they contain so much water. There's very little land. So I'll go ahead and purchase both of those just to make this a little bit easier over here. And then I'll expand the garbage facility a little bit. So that gives us an extra 150 tons or so of overhead that hopefully gets us through the episode. Garbage is definitely another city service that I'd like to consider upgrading fairly soon. And the incineration plant is a pretty good candidate. The only problem is that it costs $1 million to place, and our bank balance is nowhere near enough to be able to afford that yet, and also has a pretty high upkeep. And our monthly balance, it would be able to accommodate that, but it's really just a matter of the total bank balance that we have. So definitely not something for this episode, but I do like that incineration plant because it also produces power. And then if we head back over here, I want to fill out the rest of the roadways here. One thing I want to do is if I go back over here where there's Embarcadero Street, which I actually do have to rename to just the Embarcadero, which is the name of the street in real life. Embarcadero, it's hard to spell. I think that's it. Yeah, that's the real life name. So I just want to honor that. And I think that eventually is going to swing through all the way probably to where this street is right here. Possibly terminate there for now. Right now it terminates back here. And that's just because like this land is somewhat hard to build on right now. And there's no, like, I don't want to fill in this land because that would be a really expensive project. And at the size of the city right now, that doesn't make any sense. But in the future, that is probably what I'll do is I'll fill in some land here and then extend that street all the way over here. But for now, like, the reason I'm thinking about that is this Applegate Street, I just want to kind of end right here. So I'm satisfied with this for now, at least. I did do a little bit of terraforming here just so I could extend this street out a little bit. I didn't end up actually needing to do that because I mismeasured this street right here. I put it out here and actually really didn't need to go as far to match this grid length over here. And now what I want to do is place down some industrial and also get some commercial zoning in there as well, just to have that option in this area. So I've filled out most of this interior area here, and I don't want to go too crazy and fill out these yet, just because we don't actually need it for now. And I've actually done a little bit of extra zoning of industrial that will fill in later, as well as the office and commercial here. The next thing I want to do is kind of look at the rest of the city and place down some higher density housing in some of the empty spaces in the city. So my very first candidate for some additional housing is right in here. We've actually opened up this land a little bit by first purchasing the tile right here, and then adding in these streets. So this is kind of where I want to put in a low rent housing, like apartment complex. And that's where I'll be using those French assets. And the first thing I want to do is actually move this road. So delete this road and then move it this way so that we have a nice rectangular plot of land that goes and bumps up against the highway. And then I'll place down some of the French assets. And I think they're about, I think it's 4x2 and 5x3 as well as 6x6, but I'll only use the 4x2 and 5x3 grid cell size buildings just because I don't want to use the massive ones yet. So I'll go ahead and start that. And I think this area, I want it to be more of a custom space as opposed to just mass zoning the area. So what I'll do is I'll kind of create its own local roadway network and place down maybe a park or something and detail accordingly. So I've placed down the buildings. I got 2 4x2s and 2 5x3s. And what I want to do is fill out some of the empty space with just a couple parking lots. And those will probably be like right here and right here. And then around the outside, there will be some more like dense tree landscaping, and possibly like a park somewhere in here or right here. Basically anywhere I can fit in a park, probably like a small playground and maybe some other form of park will go in there. Okay, so the buildings are in now, and I actually like kind of, especially this building, this angled building facing out this way. This one I don't love, and then these two I don't think there's any other options. I think there's only one 4x2 set of buildings from level 1 to 3. Ultimately, I think I want to maybe see if I can get a different one to spawn here. And while I wait for that to spawn, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna detail this area a little bit. So I added a tiny city park so that there's some through access here. And then, well, I don't know if the game will actually make that through access, but that's the idea. And then a small playground here. And I'm just gonna fix the orientation a little bit. You can see they're a little bit off. I'll do that, and then I'll start getting in some more detailed landscaping surrounding. I'm pretty satisfied with how things look now. I did get another one of these L-shaped buildings coming in here, and I'm just gonna leave it and not worry about exactly, optimizing exactly which buildings we get in. It is good enough, and I think once things level up, it'll start looking even better. That's it for this area. I think the one thing that I wish there was more room for was actually parking, which I never like to say, but like this many buildings, it's kind of hard to justify only this amount of parking. You can already see it with how full these lots are. So a lot of that parking ends up having to be street parking out on this street right here. But overall, I think it is pretty right sized for the city we have going on, and there's plenty of space around these buildings, so it's not like they look too out of place. Up next, I want to start thinking about other areas that are maybe similar to this, but I won't give the same level of treatment. I did just want to give these French buildings a little bit extra time and care in placement. So for the other areas, it'll probably be more like what I've done in the past of just placing some medium density buildings in and then seeing if there's any space left over for commercial buildings. So one of the areas I think I want to focus on right now is right in here in this corridor. There's not a whole lot going on, at least up until this intersection. I think it's pretty fair to say that this could be housing right here as a little break from the commercial corridor right here, since we don't really need all of that commercial quite yet in the city. And later on we can adjust that, but for now I think housing right here would make sense. Before I go ahead and do that, what I want to do first is actually create a district around the city so far, and that'll be the city of Costanoa in the greater county. At some point later, I think I want to have like a separate other city that I'll be building, but for now, it'll just be the one city of Costanoa in Costanoa County. There we go. So now what I'll do is I'll zoom in on this area and at least fill some of it out. So I've decided to still let this area stay undeveloped for now, because I think this is still like kind of all of these blocks right here. I want to be more commercial focused. I didn't want to start placing things down too quickly and impatiently. What I'll do instead is I'll kind of detail a little bit of this area out, as well as back here what I just placed, but I'll start in this area back behind our commercial here. So I have left things pretty simple back here. It's really just to create some sort of a, foliage wall between these homes here and the commercial area here. And at a later point, we could possibly put in a larger building here. So this space is preserved for that future use if there's any sort of like signature building we want to place over here. And then over in this area, since there's some cranes still, I'm going to leave it for now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop back over to the high school here. And this is something I left in the last episode as is, because I just didn't have the money to do anything else. So what I want to do is just kind of fill out the space a little bit. And I think ultimately we don't have the high school sports park unlocked yet, but I know for a fact it's not going to fit in any of these spaces here. We do have enough space for a future extension. We might need earlier rather than later. And now that I'm looking at it, I think what I would rather do first is go back over to our elementary school and check to see how we're doing there. And yeah, we're pretty much at capacity there. So what I'd rather do is go ahead and place an extension wing here. And I don't think I'd be able to get 2 in. No, I can only get the 1 in, at least right here. So I'll do that. And I'll give it a little bit of space. And I think I want to have enough space, hopefully, for the gymnasium as well. So let me check that, how big that is. So there's no way I'll be able to fit that in here, and that's okay. But this basically leaves this area here open, and I can decide on placing something there later on. For now, I want to get these surfaces cleaned up. And I've decided to make maybe just a little sports field over here or something in lieu of having, because there's no way I can fit in any other extension wings or anything in here. And I think the space really should be dedicated to the elementary school. So I'm going to just use some of the assets, the props that we have available, and try to make some sort of small sports field, maybe with these goals right here. So I'm more or less satisfied with that look for now. It doesn't have to be too crazy or anything. I've just added some like greenhouses. Maybe that's like a small garden for the students, and then a small play area in addition to this actual playground. But I just want to have an extra one since I was here detailing, and then a small soccer field. And the other thing I wanted to do while I'm here is actually just change the name of this to Costanoa Elementary School. And then while I'm at that, I'll go back over here and do the same thing right here. And I think I'm actually going to leave this one because I just did that. I added the extension wing on the elementary school and then kind of detailed it all in one go. I'll do a similar thing here, probably in the next episode, of adding in an extension wing, probably right about here, possibly a second one since I have the space, but I'll reconsider once I'm at that point, and then adding in parks and any additional detailing that I want to. But I think that's a more extensive project that I want to do. So for now, I'm going to leave this as is. And then I'll head back over to our newer area here, and I'm just going to add a few additional trees right here. I think that'll do here. If we take a look at this medium density building, I don't know that I exactly Wish I did that because I didn't really realize that this one was here as well. But I think they look okay next to each other, so I will go ahead and roll with it. I think it looks fine, especially since this is a more medium density corridor. These houses over here, I don't know, the low density I'm not completely sold on. And then, like I said, this commercial right here is not actually going to zone in for a while. But I am okay with at least just leaving it there. It's a signal to me that that's what I want to do with the area. And then the last thing I'll do right here is just very quickly add in a few trees just to fill in this space. And it really might just be like that, and then possibly just 2 evergreen trees. And I love to use the evergreen trees to make something look denser. You'll notice that I use the evergreen trees back here to essentially make like fence, since there aren't actual fences available in any of the assets we have now. There's probably a way to fudge it a little bit, maybe to use one of these assets as a fence. Possibly you could use these garden beds, but I don't think I want to spend my time doing that. And also in my head, this kind of acts as a fence from like this view. Like you can imagine that there is a fence surrounding this with this tree line here. So that's kind of the look I was going for. The last thing I wanted to do actually was, I remember there's these sport park benches. I wanted to add a few of those in right here just to make it look a little bit more interesting for the students. And I'm gonna have to move a couple things around, so I'll do that real quick. That'll just add a little bit of visual interest to the area. And this is really unfortunate, but just as I was about to close out the episode, I noticed that this happened right here, and I don't really know why that happened, but I want to make sure that I get that building back in here, and I'm hoping it spawns in with one of these again. If it doesn't, I will fix it off camera, but I'm going to make sure that that comes in as one of those buildings again. Okay, so it has spawned in again. That's one that I'm going to keep an eye out for, and hopefully it doesn't continue to cause issues, but if it does, I may have to reconsider the zoning right here, but I'm hoping it stays as is. So that's going to be it for this episode in Costanoa County. To give a quick recap of what we got accomplished today. So the first thing was buying some additional tiles. So we bought tiles over here, and then a couple tiles right here to just expand to get the rest of this little peninsula right here. And then over in this area, added some farms to make up for the lack of production in that area that we had. And then added some industrial over here, some zoned industrial. And this space will continue to grow out, and in the future, hopefully link back up over here. But for now, it's really just an additional expansion of this industrial zone over here. And then in this area right here, I've added a few of the French assets, the low rent housing assets from the French asset pack. And lastly, went over into this elementary school and did a little bit of detailing, added an extension wing, renamed it, as well as adding some detailing in this particular area. I want to thank anyone who's watched this video, and if you have any feedback on video editing or builds or anything of that nature, feel free to leave that in the comments below. It's very helpful as I continue to learn how to make videos. This particular apartment build over here was one of my favorite builds, so I hope if you're made it this far in the video that you enjoyed it as well. But with that, I will see you in the next one.